Alright, Future Jay here, just to quickly add in that this video is pre-recorded. That doesn't really take a whole lot. It was recorded a few weeks ago because I had some planning stuff to do for the next set of films and also a little holiday thing. That really doesn't change a whole lot, but what I do want to say is within the video I talk about a new film releasing and it comes out to mid to late August. This video is releasing on the 23rd. That is now officially going to be moved to the 30th of August. So 1 week from this video releasing. Anyway, thought to add that in. I'm probably going to introduce it later on as well because of how old this video actually is. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. A video that I definitely wasn't expecting to make at the beginning of summer, but here we are. Just going to give a quick introduction to this video. I've had surgery, and that has made some massive complications towards the third film of Chapter 2. And usually I wouldn't bother talking about things like these, but because I made a promise about making 5 films over 2 years and having each of them, you know, represent something, having a continuous story, now that one of those parts are missing, I thought it's best to make a video kind of talking about it and what the plan is to adapt around that. And so I thought it's best for me to also talk about the surgery itself, which I partly also want to talk about because what happened to me can happen to literally anybody watching this, and so I'd rather make this video so hopefully people, when they go through the symptoms I did, just go straight to A&E and don't piss us about like I did. So yeah, this video is going to have 2 parts. We're going to start off talking about my surgery and kind of the story that goes into it, and then after that, there's timestamps down there if you want to click on them as well. We're then going to talk about what's going to happen to the third film of Chapter 2. Right away, I do want to say that the 4th and 5th film, the 2 massive projects at the end, are completely untouched. This has made no impact on them. When I go back to uni, them 2 will begin production, but they're not. They're completely untouched. If anything, they're going to get better, which I'll explain later. So you know what? Let's just jump into story time for the first time on this channel. God, we've got some new milestones this summer, aren't we? Okay, so I guess we're going to start in chronological order, which would be the 13th of June. Now, whilst this hasn't really nothing to do with the surgery, it's the day where I actually filmed the Where You Are behind the scenes. The video that you just saw about 2 weeks ago was actually filmed over a month ago. So how I usually do it is I film it segment by segment. I do scene 1's breakdown analysis, and then I edit it all together, and then continue that. I was basically starting to get to the end of that day. I was in scene 6, I was halfway done, and I noticed I only had about maybe an hour or so left of good lighting from natural lighting. And so I decided, you know what, let's just bulk it. Let's just do the rest of it all in one go. And so I did, and was going to edit it the following day. The following day was my baby cousin's 4th birthday. So we had a little family gathering, party food and all kinds of stuff. Later that night, around 10, 11 o'clock, I started to feel really, really sick out of absolutely nowhere. So straight away, the editing plan went to complete shit and never really happened until 3 weeks later. But anyway, I started to get really, really sick and I didn't really know what to do. I was just like, you know what, let's just call it a night. Gonna go to bed, wake up tomorrow and hopefully feel better. 3 a.m, I started to throw up. Now, I am going to make a quick trigger caution warning right now. The rest of this story, I'm not going to shy away from details to do with throwing up and stuff like that. Because I kind of want to describe what was going on, so it kind of is a little more easier to imagine. So yet again, if someone kind of has these symptoms, they also decide to go to A&E. So if you are kind of a little bit uncomfortable with details to do with throwing up and stuff like that, please refrain from this video or skip to the chapter 2 segment. Okay, yeah, anyway, continue. Now, honestly, when I threw up for the first time, it was around 3 a.m, I was actually kind of relieved because if you know me, within the last few years, I have had food poisoning many, many times. I've been food poisoned from college canteen food. I've been food poisoned by Wagamama's, and I've also been food poisoned by party food because naturally with kids running around in the garden and then touching all the party food, germs are going to spread, you're probably going to get sick. And so that's why I assumed it was, and I was honestly relieved. However, the throwing up never really stopped. Usually when you get food poisoning, your system tries to get the bad food out. Once the bad food is out, it then calms down. It didn't really calm down. The throwing up just kept going on and on and on. I think I threw up around 8 or 9 times. And now this is where the gross parts we're getting to now. It got to the point where I wasn't throwing up food. It was like basically stomach acid. It was just liquid, of clear, bubbly liquid. It was really disgusting and really burned my throat and everything. And it kind of only stopped around the following morning, around maybe like say 12 o'clock. Now, I hope that was the end of the story, because no, I then had extreme stomach pain. I'm talking absolutely adherent pain I have never felt before. Now, I, yet again, stupidly wrote this off as I was throwing up. Naturally, your lungs, your stomach, it's gonna hurt after throwing up. but it was so much pain, and it got to the point where I spent the following 2 days lying in bed, just lying there in complete agony because I thought it was stomach pain from throwing up, and so it would eventually slowly pass, in my stupid mind anyway. Now, if we fast forward those 2 days, we reach what was going to be the 16th of June, which was actually going to be my baby cousin's kind of close family celebration. We were going to take him to Peppa Pig World. I think we did a similar to me when I was around 5 or 6 years old. But we were going to take him to Peppa Pig World and give him a birthday treat, and obviously we were all going to go in a car, we were all going to go there. I then had the decision, since I wasn't throwing up anymore, would I want to go? And so I was like, I don't really want to miss out on a family trip. You know, I've been at uni for an entire year. I don't really want to miss out on that. And around 5 a.m. of that day, I actually started to feel a little bit better. So I thought, you know what, let's go, let's do it. An hour later, the pain came back, and it was even worse. It like doubled down on the pain factor. What the fuck? Since the pain was then getting double as bad, I then said to my parents, look, you're going to go to Peppa Pig, well, that's all cool. Just take me to the walk-in centre, just so I can figure out what's going on. If this is just kind of stomach pain from all the throwing up, fair enough. Just let me go to the walk-in centre so I can figure out and double-check to make sure nothing bad was actually going on. So, got there half an hour early, had to sit on a bench around the corner. Then I had to waddle my way over to the walking centre. You know what? Let me give you an example of what my walking was for like a week around this time. So to give you an example, this was how I was walking. Just like that. Isn't very fast now, is it? So yeah, I had to walk all the way there to, well, all the way there, I'm acting really dramatic now. So I went around the corner, got into the walk-in centre. Surprisingly, because I went so early, literally, I was there as they opened their goddamn doors. Within an hour, I got a consultation with the doctor, which at that point, things started to get a little bit concerning. The main two things that happened was, one, when he touched my stomach to give it an examination, I was in agony. I don't know why my entire body started to recoil, and at that point, I was just bawling out. I don't know why, I was just tearing up, and it was just so painful for no reason, and all he did was graze my stomach. He didn't even do a proper, like, I don't know, poke test. And then after that, he's basically said that through that examination, not only should that have not hurt as much as it did, but he also said that my stomach was the wrong shape. It wasn't the shape of a normal stomach. And he said he wasn't going to diagnose me with it, but he said from the feel of it, is that from the throwing up, the stomach tubes, I don't know what you'd call them, you know, there's stuff going on with your stomach, they were essentially folding over and tying themselves together, causing stomach contortion. I don't know the word, I'm not going to pretend like I do. Running off that basis, he didn't exactly diagnose me, but what he did say was, here's some papers, printed out a bunch of my forms and papers and stuff, and said, go to A&E and get an emergency x-ray. And I was like, okay. Now I had to make it to A&E. And if you remember, my family's on a road day trip right now, so guess it's time to call up a taxi. When the taxi arrived, I got in the car and he said, where are you going, boss? And I said, A&E. And he was like, are you okay? What's going on? And I was like, my stomach might be contorted. Let's go. And he was like, yeah, sure. If you need anything, let me know. And every single turn, bump of that car, jeez, even now when I'm trying to remember the story and convey it, I can't describe the pain. I'm at a loss for words, honestly. Now, because I think there was some sort of construction going on at the hospital, he had to drop me off in the kind of visiting bay, which was around the corner from the front entrance. So yet again, me and my old man Waddle have to walk all the way around to the front of A&E. Now, to put it into perspective, firstly, I'm going to start taking this story a little bit more seriously now. I know I've been kind of joking around, kind of being a bit bigger about the whole thing, but I do want to emphasize how kind of important it is that you do get checked out if things like this start to happen, because it was almost fatal, and I was not going to go originally. This was a last moment thing of me actually going to A&E, and thank fuck I did. But to kind of put it into perspective, there was kind of an older person in front of me, and as he went up, he was, you know, saying, oh, I've started to have a little bit of back pain. As I walked up, waddling the way I was, immediately you could see on the nurses, they were scared. They were like, what is going on with this kid? And so they immediately, like, 3 of them came over and started asking me questions about what's going on. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. All I know is my stomach's in a lot of pain. My stomach might be turned around. Here's a document to say I need an x-ray. Now, at this point, I was waiting in A&E, dying from agony. My family knew I was in A&E, and Izzy, bless her heart, came over to help me out as soon as she could anyway. And so I was waiting there in A&E, and eventually they brought me over to kind of the, I don't know, emergency room, you know, where they just have a bunch of people sat around and they're doing all kinds of tests and stuff like that. And I sat there for about 2 to 3 hours. I remember just constantly waiting, playing games on my phone. And a few times the nurses kept coming up to me, I was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't know what's going on, man." They're like, "Are you on any pain relief right now?" And I said no. And they're like, "Here." And they just gave me a cup filled with pills that were painkillers. So to be fair, they didn't make much of a difference. After that, they did some blood work, and then they kind of, after a while, doing some tests, some consultation lady came up to me. That's when they did what I called the poking test, which is where she kind of like applied pressure to my stomach, and at that point, I just started bawling out. I was crying my eyes out. I was in so much pain. I was freaking out because I was like, this isn't normal. Your stomach's not supposed to be making you feel like you've been stabbed 17 times over in the same spot. And I didn't really know what to do at that point. So then she left me with a very ominous thing. You're going to have a consultation with surgeons. So there I was in A&E. They started I just had to wait on these like really, to be fair, they were quite comfortable chairs. I think they're there for people who need to get like IV drips and stuff like that, and they have to sit there for multiple hours on the same. So I was on this nice comfortable chair with the information that I'm going to be talking to a surgeon. Literally about maybe 20 minutes later, not even that, all of a sudden I was rushed into a little side room, and at that point a member from the surgical team came up to me and kind of run me down on their test results that they found out from the blood work and stuff. So what happened was, so obviously you have blood, they check my blood toxin levels, and usually the normal toxin levels within your blood should be around about 10. I was 115, and my white blood cells, which should be around about 10 as well, was at 17. So essentially, there was a civil war going on within my stomach, and they were trying to fight it off. I know I said I was going to take this more seriously, but I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to be serious with this. I was just kind of shell-shocked. He was basically telling me that my entire stomach was filled to the brim with all kinds of infections and stuff. At that point, I finally got my diagnosis, which was appendicitis. Yes, all of this was caused because of my fucking appendix. Now, I've been terrified of my appendix for many years. There was someone in my high school I had to get it removed and said that there is no cause, it just kind of happens. And since then, I've always been terrified of it and was honestly annoyed at myself for waiting this long. But, so firstly, I know appendix, everyone has it, and eventually at some point it might rupture, but please, 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 if your stomach is dying of pain, go to fucking A&E, because what I found out that day was honestly terrifying. Due to all of my infections and stuff that were going on inside me, they basically said that I needed an IV drip and antibiotics for 2 days after the operation with some extra that I would take home with me. And so not only was I scheduled in for an emergency surgery and was supposed to be on a 6-hour IV drip for the surgery, I was only on it for like an hour before they took me away and already did my surgery almost immediately. But also it turns out that the appendix was very far. Like it was what I would describe as, so I'm going to kind of skip forward to the story to kind of describe it properly. When I got out of surgery, I was actually on IV and antibiotics for 5 days instead of 2. That then made us realize that the appendix was extremely close to rupturing. And if you don't know, if an appendix ruptures, that's kind of it. You're dead. There are people who have survived a heart attack and stuff, and I'm sure there are people who have survived an appendicitis explosion. But the truth is, appendicitis is such a big blow to your system, you're probably not surviving. Not only is the initial eruption so ungodly painful that you will probably die of shock almost immediately, but even when you do, if you do somehow survive it, you then have hundreds of thousands of God knows what swing around your system, and that's what was happening to me. My one was rupturing so badly that my entire system was completely washed of infection. So they said that during the surgery, they would try and wash it out as much as they can, fill me to the brim with antibiotics and IVs, and try their best to kill it post-op because of how much was going on in there. So then I went into surgery. After that, I've actually had many surgeries in my life. I've had 4 up until this point. Well, that was my 4th one. And so I wasn't really scared of the surgery. In fact, I'm going to play you a little video in a minute of me joking around within the A&E thing waiting to be taken to a surgery, because when I found out what was going on and I knew that I'm in a hospital, I'm in A&E, they're about to do my surgery, I'm not gonna die, I was so relieved, I was so grateful and happy that I was actually alive and I was going to be okay. And I wasn't scared of the surgery because I've had major hip and leg surgeries, so this is going to be nothing. So I was like, thank the Lord. So yeah, I guess I could, after the video, I'll quickly tell you kind of what appendicitis surgery actually looks like as well, and I will also talk about my recovery. When I was a young boy, I used to look at the hospitals and I used to think, damn, that's a big building. And I'd sit there and I'd smile, because I remember that's where I was birthed. And then, one time, my mother almost died. And then she went to the hospital, and now she is alive. They performed miracles, pure magic from another dimension. I've always wondered what the sorcery was, and so I decided from that day I would find it out. And now I'm here, disguising as if I was going to have my appendix removed. But little do they know, I am hiding many a weaponry in here. And I will find their ultimate machinery that makes the magic of survival. And so, yeah, that was love that clip. I don't know why I even came up with that. But so after that, so basically how an appendix surgery happens is they use it's called a keyhole surgery, which is where they have 3 holes. They have one where they kind of put a bunch of cameras down in there so they can see what they're doing, another tiny little hole where they actually take the appendix out, and then the final hole was to put a drain in my stomach. That's what I completely forgot as well. Not only was I have IV and antibiotics, but I also had a drain, which most of the people I've talked to about having appendicitis, only one of them actually had a drain, which if you have a drain, it means you are packed the fuck up with infections, and that drain is trying its best to save your life. After that, I went into post-op recovery and eventually had my kind of post-op consultation with the surgeon, and he basically said, yeah, that was definitely appendicitis, because you can tell visually how close it was to erupting. And he said that it was very fucking close, and I ended up being on the drain for 4 days and the IVs drips for 5 days, which means I had pretty much double the amount that they thought I already had in me. So what ends up happening, and what I realized before leaving, was that I was probably not going to make it to the following day had I not gone to A&E, which is where I'm now actually going to stop kind of joking around and stuff, which is, please just go to the doctors. I myself am very fucking stubborn when it comes to pain and stuff like that. If I have a pain in my leg, if I have a stomach pain, if I have a headache, I'll deal with it myself. Maybe take some paracetamol, and that's as much as I'll do. But honestly, please just go to a GP, go to consultation, whatever you need to do, just get it checked out. Because even though I had no idea it could have been appendicitis, I checked anyway. Just because I was like, at the end of the day, this isn't normal. It's better to just be reaffirmed that it is normal. And that's kind of my takeaway of it. It's best to go to a consultation, even if you think you're fine, so you have the reaffirmation that you are fine. And if you're not, you can then be taken care of. Because had I decided to push it back, if I said to myself, you know what, we're going to wait one more day, and then if it's not fixed, then I'll go to the doctors, I wouldn't have been here to go to the doctors. And not only has that made me very, very grateful for actually managing to be here and make this video and still go through and make the way you are behind the scenes, but yeah, just go to the doctors. Now we are on to the second half of the video, because from the story I've just told you, after I came out after 5 days of being in the hospital, I then had to have a 6-week recovery period, which is where I couldn't do anything active. This is where it's now impacted the summer film. To put it bluntly, my third chapter 2 film, I think it would have been the 10th film as of releasing that, it was going to be a remake of my 4th short film, Wildlife. If you don't know and you haven't watched its behind the scenes, you would know that I massively limited it down to 10 minutes, ideally, to fit it into something called the Horizon Trilogy. And that, because it never got the other parts of the story, you never got Ruin, you never got Flowers, Wildlife looks as the odd duckling of my entire catalogue, and I always felt bad for it. Style-wise, it is very distinct, and I adore the story. And so when making chapter 2 and realizing I'm back in Luton, we got to use something with that, it was going to be a kind of, let's give an old film a chance to thrive when it never got the chance to. And obviously Walk the Talk would be the first one, but Walk the Talk for me didn't really need the story. At the end of the day, you got Cuts and Bruises, that is essentially a glorified Walk the Talk. And so Wildlife was my runner-up. I adored Wildlife Story, and I had so many great, amazing ideas to give it a breath of fresh air. I was going to take Kai to London. There was going to be a trap sequence. There was going to be an introduction of antagonists. There was also going to be a deforestation story in there. It was going to be so much more developed and really exciting, and it really does suck that I couldn't make it. And that's because I wasn't allowed to do anything physical for 6 weeks after my surgery. 3 weeks after my surgery, Wildlife was planned to begin. I was starting to get the actors, the script was being finalised. I was so close to starting, basically saying to everyone, hey, look, this is our production, this is our filming schedule, here we go. And then my recovery bleeds halfway through it. In fact, as of recording this video, I am only 2 days off of being able to do things physical again. And if you've watched Wildlife, it is a very physical film. There was going to be lots of running, there was going to be climbing, all kinds of things, and I was going to be the camera person of the film, whilst Kai and Sharia took the lead. I can't run with them during that 6-week period, and I guess it's like, the original Wildlife was already limited, and that was something I always promised about Chapter 2, is that these were going to be more thorough, developed films, but the number one thing that they weren't going to be had some sort of limitation. I was going to let them be everything they could be. If I had to then remove the running scenes and kind of the freedom idea scenes from Wildlife that made up a good half of the film, I'd be making another limited version of Wildlife. So yes, we could have went through of making Wildlife, but I couldn't sit there and actually made another limited version when it already had a limited version, when this is supposed to be the developed version. So I couldn't do it. So with the talk of Wildlife out of the way and kind of talking about what would have been, what's going to happen now? Obviously, Chapter 2 is a 5-part story where I said within its teaser trailer 2 they will be continuing this 5-part story. And also, one thing I'm going to mention is that there was a certain character set to return within Wildlife. I'm not going to spoil it, but there was a certain character that was going to return in Wildlife that was also going to continue their story as well, which obviously now that can't happen. So what's going on? So overall, Chapter 2 is not massively impacted. Like I said, the 4th and 5th film are completely untouched. In fact, now that I can't make a film now, I've got an extra almost 2 months to develop them in pre-production and develop them more and make them even bigger and greater and really concise as I want them to be, which is great. So overall, those two are going to improve. But what's now going to happen with the missing part of Chapter 2? So this is what's going to happen. So basically, in my acting course, we had a film module, and I had to make a coursework short film that had to be 10 minutes. Mine overran, but they said it's not massively impactful. It's actually 16 minutes long, and it was originally going to be a Chapter 2 bonus film. I was going to release Where You Are, this bonus film, and then Wildlife will become the 10th film. It was going to be a 10th film as a kind of commemoration that we're 10 films in, so we go back to what we knew before and make a developed version just to kind of have a nice comparison. So now that Wildlife is not happening, this coursework short film is now going to take the spot as the 3rd film. And so you know what? I'm just going to announce it. The film is called Experiment 106. This is yet again one of the infamous titles mentioned in the Wildlife behind the scenes that was supposed to be short film 4. I was going to make a completely different film for my coursework until I realised that I actually do have a space to make it in. So yes, it's not as long, but it's still up to Chapter 2 quality. It's still got a higher production. It's still got a really nice developed story, a good plot twist in there, a lot of cool stuff going on. It's just only 16 minutes. That's his only drawback, is the fact that it's 16 minutes. It's a burst of content rather than what the Chapter 2 films are, which is usually anywhere between 40 to an hour long. So yeah, that's its really only difference. It's still up to the quality and the production value that I expect of the Chapter 2 films. It's just not as long. So you're still getting a quality film. It's just a little bit on the shorter side. So when will this film be releasing? At the moment, I'm not really too sure. I've still got a few things to go over. For example, Wildlife Remake was going to have a post-credit scene. I've got to decide whether or not we're going to still basically take that, what was going to be that post-credit scene, which isn't filmed yet, and slap that onto the end of Experiment 106, or if we're just going to continue on without it, maybe take both of the 2 post-credit scenes and put them onto the end of the next film. Not too sure at the moment. I'm going to be working that out. But I'm expecting Experiment 106 to be releasing anywhere between mid to late August. And that will also be getting a behind the scenes, a very quick video of me kind of talking about it and stuff, and lots of bloopers as well. There's so many funny moments as well. So it's still getting a Chapter 2 treatment. I don't know about a trailer right now because it's just a little bit on the shorter end to make a trailer of. So if I do end up making a trailer, it won't have a teaser trailer. It will just go straight in. You already know what the title is. You already know it's Experiment 106. So yeah, we're going to be making maybe a trailer, releasing it. And it also will not have, well, actually, I don't know. I kind of want your guys' opinion on this. Future Jay back, just to quickly let you know that since they're recording that video, I've decided what I'm going to do, which is I will still be releasing Experiment 106, obviously, but the main thing is that it will not be carrying the kind of status of Chapter 2. It's not going to have any post-credit scenes or trailers or anything. I might release a trailer for its release. That's still in the air, but in terms of the post-credit scene and teaser trailer 2 that I'm going to be talking about as well, I'm not too sure where I'm going to put this in the video, but I've decided that it's best to just let Experiment 106 release and then just move on, because at the end of the day, it's only 16 minutes long. It's not going to be able to carry everything that the last two have done and what the next two are going to do as well. So it's best to just release it and then call it a day. I will say that the behind the scenes for Experiment 106, that is still beginning behind the scenes, and it will be releasing probably on the exact same day, I'm considering. So yeah, exciting news, I guess. Back to the video. So I guess the final thing to talk about is kind of within Chapter 2, every single teaser trailer 2 continues the story of Chapter 2. So you have the Yes, I'm a Mess music video for the Cuts and Bruises that started off the story, and then Inertia for Where You Are that then continued it. So I'm a little bit stuck on kind of what I'm going to do, and I'd like you guys' opinion on it, which is the third part of this story was debatably the least important. If I was to rank them based on importance, it would be part 4, part 5, part 2, part 1, part 3. Part 3 basically continued what part 2 was talking about, and then ever so slightly started to become a bit more of the style that the fourth part was going to have, which realistically can be cut without complications. It does mean that there's going to be a kind of weird thing of there's stuff going on with all 5 of the films by the end, and so missing one of those will be a little bit weird, so I'll work that out as well. But I kind of want your guys' opinion on it. Should I go through with making that teaser trailer despite the film itself not being able to cameo in it? Because obviously with Wildlife there was going to be all kinds of stuff. Basically the film relates somewhat into the music video that is being played. It can't really relate to it because they're completely different styles, and also I can't show any film footage because with Wildlife it was going to be around about 40 minutes long, maybe even 50 minutes long, whereas Experiment 106 is 16 minutes. I can't really show a lot of footage in there, otherwise you're going to end up watching a lot of the film. So yeah, let me know your guys' opinion on that. So I guess now it's the kind of overall take, which is I am now fully recovered. I'm fully recovered as of 2 days ago of recording this film, so this video. So I'm allowed to I'm going to start getting back into being more active now. I was allowed to walk around, hang out with friends, hang out with family, etc. I just wasn't allowed to do the more physical things such as running, climbing, which was going to be important to Wildlife. So in terms of that, my recovery is complete. I'm going to be working heavily on the next 2 scripts. I'm so excited for these final 2 films, and being able to work on them more is honestly more relieving. These films have been in the works and wanting to happen for many years, and so I can't sit here and allow myself to release a film version of these that aren't good enough. So having enough time to make them as good as possible is honestly much more preferable, and I'm really excited for the next 2 films, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. They will be starting at the same time that Cuts and Bruises and Where You Are began within their respective years as well. Next film starting in September, and also the final film will be beginning in January. So I think that is everything. With the reason why I'm releasing Experiment 106 quite later on is because, one, I want to make sure all of its stuff is kind of planned out. Is there things that kind of ruin Chapter 2 in there? Go and make sure everything is fully fleshed out, and maybe even a possible re-edit as well to make sure it's as good as it can be. And yeah, so that'll be releasing mid to late August, and that also means you are getting a film as late as that's around the time that Wildlife would have released. So I thought it's best to give you a film as late as possible so there isn't a massive gap between releases. There's still going to be August to December, maybe even January, depending on what the editing is looking like. So yeah, I thought to release it as late as possible, but this is kind of it. Chapter 2 is being altered quite a bit, but it's only one of its parts. The first half of Chapter 2 has been very smooth. The middle part with Wildlife and everything has obviously been messed about, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that the story continues and that this hasn't really ruined a lot, because I've been working, I really want Chapter 2 to be everything that I want it to be, and missing a part of its story does kind of hurt it a little bit. So I'm going to do everything I can. If that means making a teaser trailer 2 music video to literally to promote no film and it just releases anyway, then sure, I'll do it, because it keeps the story going and that's what's important to me at the end of the day. So yeah, my overall takeaway is Wildlife is sadly cancelled, Experiment 106 is coming out soon, and the final 2 films are going to be the best things that have ever released on this channel. I'm really excited, and yeah, it's been a very weird summer for me. So I guess I do a normal outro. If you guys did enjoy this video, leave a like and leave a comment down below on all the things I asked about, and like all the things about chapter 2 and stuff that you want to kind of give your input on. I guess it's a weird one to ask people to like and subscribe, because this is a story time video that is ideally not going to happen again, and isn't much of a burst of content. I don't think anyone's going to watch this and think, man, that guy makes some cool videos. But yeah, like, subscribe, turn on some notifications so you'll know when Experiment 106 comes out, any other trailers come out, and also follow my social medias down below. You would have known, if obviously if you're a YouTube only if you are a YouTube only audience member, you would have seen that Why You Are came out extremely late, and you're just like, okay, whatever. Yeah, on there I kind of talk about why things are being delayed, release trailers and all kinds of stuff like that. So I think that's everything. I might come back and add some clips if I need to, but yeah. Thanks for watching, I guess. See you guys soon.